Staff Sergeant Kevin Murphy burst into laughter when the old janitor quietly corrected the German colonel's English pronunciation during morning briefing prep. Lieutenant Sarah Davis joined in, shaking her head at the audacity of Bob Wilson, thinking he knew better than trained military interpreters. The custodial staff always overstepped their bounds, but this was particularly ridiculous coming from someone whose job was emptying trash cans and mopping floors at Joint Base Andrews. Bob continued wiping down the conference table while the officers mocked him, his weathered hands steady despite their ridicule. He had learned long ago that dignity came from within, not from the recognition of others. The 68-year-old veteran had been pushing his cleaning cart through these halls for 3 years, invisible to most personnel who saw only the faded blue uniform and the quiet man who kept their facility spotless. Murphy leaned back in his chair, addressing the other staff members with obvious amusement. The janitor thinks he speaks German better than our certified linguists. Next thing you know, old Bob here will be offering to translate classified intelligence briefings. The laughter echoed through the briefing room as more personnel gathered for the morning security meeting. Bob methodically arranged the water glasses and notepads, his expression unchanged by their comments. He had heard worse in his lifetime, though these young soldiers could not possibly imagine where or when. The morning routine continued as it always did, with him completing his duties while the real military business carried on around him, just another piece of invisible infrastructure keeping the base running smoothly. 20 minutes later, the briefing room erupted in confusion as Korean Admiral Park struggled to understand Colonel Schmidt's technical explanation about joint training protocols. The certified interpreter fumbled with military terminology while tension mounted between the Allied commanders. Murphy and Davis exchanged worried glances as the international cooperation meeting threatened to collapse over miscommunication. General Patricia Anderson entered precisely as frustration peaked, her 4 stars commanding immediate attention from everyone except Bob, who continued quietly organizing supplies in the corner. The German colonel gestured angrily while speaking rapid German. The Korean admiral responded in heated Korean, and the flustered interpreter admitted defeat. Bob stepped forward without invitation, addressing Colonel Schmidt in flawless German about tactical coordination requirements, then turned to Admiral Park with equally perfect Korean, explaining the same concepts. Both foreign officers immediately relaxed, nodding with understanding as Bob bridged not just language, but cultural military protocols neither interpreter had grasped. The room fell into stunned silence. Murphy's jaw dropped as he realized the man they had mocked minutes earlier possessed linguistic abilities far beyond their certified personnel. Davis stared in disbelief while other staff members whispered among themselves, suddenly seeing their invisible janitor in an entirely different light. General Anderson stepped closer, her experienced eyes studying Bob with new intensity. In 30 years of military service, she had never witnessed such sophisticated translation skills, especially from someone wearing a custodial uniform. The way he handled complex military terminology in multiple languages suggested training far beyond anything a typical maintenance worker would possess. General Anderson dismissed the foreign officers with diplomatic courtesy, while her mind raced with questions about the custodian who had just demonstrated intelligence capabilities that surpassed her trained linguists. She waited until the briefing room emptied before approaching Bob, who had returned to his cleaning duties as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. "Wilson," she said quietly, her voice carrying the authority of decades in command. "I need to see your personnel file immediately." Bob looked up from wiping the conference table, meeting her gaze with calm eyes that held depth she was beginning to recognize. He simply nodded and returned to his work. 15 minutes later, Anderson sat in her office, staring at a file that raised more questions than it answered. Robert James Wilson, age 68, veteran status confirmed, but most details were classified above her security clearance. Red flags marked sections she could not access, indicating compartmentalized information requiring special authorization. The few available details stunned her. Multiple overseas deployments, foreign language proficiency ratings, and security clearances that exceeded those of most field-grade officers. But the most shocking discovery was his current clearance level, still active and higher than her own. This man pushing a mop cart possessed access to intelligence she could not even review. Anderson reached for her secure phone, realizing she needed to contact the Defense Intelligence Agency. Robert Wilson was no ordinary janitor, and his presence at Joint Base Andrews was beginning to look less like coincidence and more like careful placement. Someone very high up the chain of command knew exactly who was emptying their trash cans. The Defense Intelligence Agency returned Anderson's call within an hour, confirming her suspicions while revealing nothing concrete. Bob Wilson was a person of significant interest, and his assignment to Joint Base Andrews had been personally approved by the Secretary of Defense. The voice on the secure line advised extreme discretion. Anderson found Bob in the maintenance facility, methodically organizing cleaning supplies with the same precision she had observed during his linguistic intervention. She approached carefully, recognizing she was dealing with someone whose true capabilities remained largely unknown. "Bob, we need to talk about your background and why you're really here." Bob paused his inventory work, studying the general with the same calm assessment she had noticed earlier. He gestured toward two folding chairs in the corner, away from potential listening devices. Over the next 30 minutes, he revealed fragments of his past. Diplomatic missions in hostile territories, cultural liaison work requiring deep language immersion, and intelligence operations where his linguistic abilities had prevented international incidents. Meanwhile, urgent messages began flooding Anderson's communication channels. A diplomatic crisis was developing with Allied forces threatening to withdraw from critical joint training exercises. Cultural misunderstandings had escalated beyond normal interpreter capabilities, and standard diplomatic channels were failing to resolve mounting tensions between multiple international military commands. Bob listened to Anderson's summary of the developing situation, his expression growing serious. The languages involved and cultural nuances described matched exactly the expertise he had spent decades developing. Once again, circumstances were aligning to require his unique combination of skills. The crisis escalated rapidly as Anderson received reports from multiple bases. Japanese commanders were threatening to cancel joint naval exercises over perceived cultural slights. Turkish allies were withdrawing air support due to misunderstood protocol violations. French special operations units had suspended cooperation after diplomatic interpreters failed to convey proper military courtesies. Standard interpreters worked frantically but lacked the military experience to understand that these conflicts went far beyond simple translation. Cultural military protocols, developed over centuries of warrior traditions, required someone who understood both language and the deeper meaning behind ceremonial military customs. Bob studied the situation reports with the focused intensity Anderson had begun to recognize. Each conflict involved subtle cultural military traditions that certified linguists would never encounter in standard diplomatic training. His decades of deep cover operations had required not just language fluency, but intimate understanding of how different military cultures expressed honor, respect, and cooperation. The breaking point came when Russian military advisors joined the complaints, citing improper address protocols that had violated their officers' honor. 5 separate Allied commands now threatened to abandon the largest joint training exercise in NATO history, representing 2 years of planning and millions in coordination costs. Anderson realized standard diplomatic channels had failed completely. The Pentagon was demanding immediate resolution, but traditional interpreters continued to misunderstand the complex intersection of language, military protocol, and cultural honor codes. Only someone with Bob's unique combination of linguistic mastery and military cultural expertise could navigate these treacherous diplomatic waters and prevent a complete breakdown in international military cooperation. Bob reluctantly agreed to assist after Anderson explained the potential collapse of international military cooperation. He requested a secure conference room and direct communication lines to all affected commands. Within 2 hours, he was conducting simultaneous conversations in Japanese, Turkish, French, Russian, and German, addressing each cultural concern with precision that stunned the observing staff. His approach went far beyond translation. He spoke to Japanese commanders using proper honorific language that acknowledged their samurai military traditions. With Turkish officers, he employed historical references to Ottoman military honor codes. French special operations received communication that recognized their elite warrior heritage through appropriate ceremonial language. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Each Allied command began responding positively as Bob demonstrated deep understanding of their military cultural pride. He knew which phrases conveyed respect in each tradition, which protocols mattered most to different warrior cultures, and how to bridge centuries-old military customs. Anderson watched in amazement as Bob revealed fluency in 12 languages, each delivered with native-level cultural understanding that certified interpreters could never match. His knowledge extended to regional dialects, military slang, and ceremonial phrases that indicated decades of immersive experience in multiple combat theaters. The diplomatic crisis began resolving as Bob rebuilt trust between Allied commands. However, his unprecedented intervention was being monitored by intelligence agencies across multiple governments. His demonstration of such sophisticated capabilities while officially employed as a janitor had triggered security reviews that would soon bring unwanted attention to his carefully maintained anonymity. Intelligence officials arrived at Joint Base Andrews within hours, led by Deputy Director Sarah Chun from the Defense Intelligence Agency. She found Bob in his maintenance closet, calmly organizing supplies as if he had not just prevented an international diplomatic disaster. The conversation that followed revealed a legend Anderson had never imagined. Bob Wilson was not his real name. Chun explained to the assembled group. He was David Roberts, one of the most decorated deep cover operatives in American history. His missions had taken him behind enemy lines in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and classified locations across Eastern Europe and Asia. His language abilities were acquired through years of dangerous immersion in hostile territories. Roberts had saved countless American lives through intelligence gathering that required perfect linguistic and cultural camouflage. He had prevented terrorist attacks, negotiated prisoner releases, and provided critical intelligence that shaped decades of foreign policy. His expertise in multiple languages and cultures had made him invaluable for operations requiring absolute authenticity. The reason for his current assignment became clear as Chun continued. Roberts' last mission had gone catastrophically wrong, exposing his identity to multiple hostile intelligence services. He had been forced into official retirement for his safety, but his skills remained too valuable to waste. The janitor position provided perfect cover while keeping him available for situations exactly like today's crisis. Anderson realized she had been witnessing living military history in action. The man they had dismissed as simple maintenance staff was actually one of the most accomplished intelligence operatives ever to serve his country, hiding in plain sight while continuing to protect American interests. Roberts' full story emerged over the next hour as Chun briefed Anderson on classified details that explained his presence at the base. His final mission in Eastern Europe had involved extracting a high-value intelligence asset whose information could have prevented a major terrorist attack. The operation required Roberts to pose as a local businessman for 18 months. The extraction succeeded, but hostile intelligence services had identified Roberts during the escape. 3 different foreign agencies now had his real identity, making continued field operations impossible. Rather than face complete retirement, he had volunteered for the janitor assignment, understanding that his linguistic abilities might still serve American interests. His sacrifice went deeper than Anderson had realized. Roberts had given up recognition, advancement, and the respect his achievements deserved to maintain operational security for ongoing missions. His decision to work invisibly while protecting classified operations demonstrated loyalty that transcended personal ambition. The janitor position at Joint Base Andrews was no coincidence. The facility regularly hosted international delegations, providing opportunities for Roberts to monitor foreign personnel and provide intelligence assessments. His cleaning duties gave him access to areas where conversations occurred in multiple languages, often revealing information that formal intelligence gathering missed. Chen explained that Roberts' contributions from his maintenance role had already prevented 2 security breaches and provided early warning about 3 separate intelligence operations targeting American facilities. His apparent invisibility made him the perfect intelligence asset, gathering critical information while everyone assumed he understood only English. The briefing was interrupted by urgent alarms as base security detected unauthorized personnel attempting to infiltrate Joint Base Andrews. Chen's secure phone erupted with reports of suspected foreign agents using sophisticated equipment to breach perimeter defenses. The timing was no coincidence, coming immediately after Roberts' exposure during the diplomatic crisis. Roberts listened to the security reports with growing concern, recognizing tactical patterns from his decades of counterintelligence experience. The infiltrators were using Eastern European techniques he had encountered during his final compromised mission. His exposure had drawn exactly the attention he had spent 3 years avoiding. Anderson coordinated base defense, while Roberts analyzed intercepted communications. His linguistic abilities immediately identified the threat as a joint operation between 2 hostile intelligence services seeking to capture or eliminate him. They had tracked his diplomatic intervention and recognized his voice patterns from recorded conversations. The infiltrators possessed detailed knowledge of base security protocols, suggesting inside assistance or extensive surveillance. Roberts realized his careful anonymity had been shattered, and the very skills that made him valuable now made him a target. His presence endangered everyone at the facility. Chen authorized Roberts to assume operational control of the counterintelligence response. For the first time in 3 years, he would need to fully embrace his capabilities as a legendary operative. The janitor uniform came off as Roberts prepared to defend the base using decades of experience in exactly this type of hostile operation. His transformation from invisible maintenance worker to active intelligence operative was complete, but the cost of exposure meant his safe haven was gone forever. Roberts moved through the facility with lethal efficiency, his decades of operational experience evident in every calculated step. He intercepted hostile communications in 3 languages, identifying infiltration routes and coordinating countermeasures with base security. Anderson watched in amazement as the mild-mannered janitor transformed into a precision intelligence weapon. Using his intimate knowledge of the facility's layout gained through 3 years of maintenance work, Roberts predicted infiltration paths before security cameras detected movement. His linguistic skills allowed him to monitor enemy communications in real time, providing tactical advantages that turned the hunters into the hunted. The hostile agents had underestimated their target, expecting to find a retired operative living quietly in witness protection. Instead, they encountered a master of counterintelligence operating on familiar ground with complete facility knowledge. Roberts used maintenance tunnels, service corridors, and utility access points to outmaneuver the intruders. Base personnel who had dismissed him as invisible support staff now witnessed legendary operational skills in action. Roberts coordinated with multiple security teams while simultaneously analyzing enemy tactics, predicting their next moves with accuracy that demonstrated why he had been one of America's most valuable intelligence assets. The infiltrators found themselves systematically isolated and captured, their sophisticated plan unraveling against an opponent who possessed advantages they could never have anticipated. Roberts had turned his greatest vulnerability, his exposure, into tactical superiority by using the very facility knowledge he had gained through his humble maintenance duties to protect the installation and everyone in it. With the final infiltrator neutralized, base security returned to normal as Roberts methodically debriefed with intelligence officials. The operation had been flawlessly executed, demonstrating that his skills remained razor-sharp despite 3 years of apparent inactivity. Anderson observed the transformation complete, watching legend become reality. Staff Sergeant Murphy and Lieutenant Davis approached Roberts with profound respect, their earlier mockery replaced by genuine admiration. The man they had ridiculed for correcting language pronunciation had just saved their lives using expertise they could never have imagined. Their apologies carried the weight of true understanding. Chun coordinated with Pentagon officials to assess the security implications of Roberts' exposure. His cover was permanently blown, but his demonstration of continued operational excellence had proven his value remained immense. The question now became how to best utilize his capabilities while ensuring his safety. Roberts accepted the transformation with characteristic calm, understanding that his quiet retirement had ended the moment he chose to help with the diplomatic crisis. He had known the risks, but could not stand by while international cooperation collapsed over cultural misunderstandings he possessed the skills to resolve. Anderson formally recognized his contributions in a classified brief to Joint Chiefs, ensuring his actions would be remembered at the highest levels of command. His story would become legend within intelligence circles, inspiring future operatives while remaining officially classified to protect ongoing operations. The facility that had unknowingly hosted a living legend for 3 years now understood they had witnessed history in action, transforming their perspective on service members who worked quietly in the background. Roberts accepted a formal position as Senior Cultural Intelligence Advisor, finally able to use his extraordinary skills openly while maintaining necessary operational security protocols. His new office overlooked the maintenance facility where he had spent 3 years in protective anonymity, serving as a reminder of the sacrifices required for national service. The international training exercises resumed successfully, with Allied commanders specifically requesting Roberts' continued involvement in future diplomatic coordination. His reputation spread throughout NATO intelligence circles as the legendary operative who had emerged from hiding to prevent international military cooperation collapse. Anderson ensured Roberts received proper recognition within classified channels while respecting his need for public discretion. His story became required reading at intelligence training facilities, inspiring new operatives to understand that true service often occurs in shadows, with heroes working invisibly until circumstances demand their emergence. Base personnel now understood that extraordinary individuals serve in unexpected roles throughout military installations. The janitor pushing a cleaning cart might possess capabilities that exceed field-grade officers. Every service member, regardless of apparent position, deserved respect for contributions that might never be fully known. Roberts' transformation from mock custodian to legendary advisor demonstrated that greatness often hides in plain sight, waiting for moments when specialized skills become essential for national security. His 3 years of quiet service had prepared him perfectly for when his country needed his unique combination of linguistic mastery and operational excellence. What moments in your life required you to step forward when others doubted your abilities? Share your story of proving yourself when it mattered most.